Can you believe it? We have to talk about inflation again. The latest government reports reveal inflation isn't dead yet, even though economists and policymakers recently were giving inflation the last rites. As inflation climbs back to its feet, we're left wondering, will inflation ever die? Economic uncertainty means you have to keep up with what's happening. Make sure you subscribe and we'll keep you in the know. After reaching a startling annual rate of 9.1% last June, inflation looked like it was over. By December, the year-over-year pace of inflation had fallen to 6.5% and the monthly rate to just 0.1%. As it turns out, however, rumors of inflation's imminent demise were greatly exaggerated. The government's latest headline inflation report reveals the Consumer Price Index re-accelerated in January, exceeding economists' projections to come in at a month-over-month pace of 0.5%. The annual rate came in higher than expected as well. Economists were looking for 6.2%, but year-over-year CPI instead checked in at 6.4% last month. The reinvigorated numbers were no fluke. 2 days after the release of January's CPI, the Labor Department revealed PPI, the Producer Price Index, jumped 0.7% in January after falling 0.2% in December. The surge in January PPI was the biggest monthly increase for the index since last June. Mark Zandi is the chief economist at Moody's Analytics. Before these latest numbers, Zandi celebrated the apparent inflation decline, saying, "It's moderating steadily and, at this point, quickly." Zandi went on to say, "I don't think people will be talking about inflation this time next year." So he doesn't think we'll be talking about inflation next year. Like I said at the beginning of this video, here we are talking about inflation again. Well, we all know experts aren't always right. Some see a different story. One hedge fund strategist who specializes in trading inflation recently told MarketWatch, "Transitory disinflation is the only story for 2023. In his view, it's not inflation that's destined to be temporary. It's the decline in inflation that won't last. And the most recent data suggests he might be onto something." Similarly, renowned economist Mohammed El-Erian declared recently that there is more inflation complexity ahead. As for why inflation is so complex this time around, El-Erian and others say it's because higher prices are energized by a variety of drivers. These drivers include fiscal and monetary policy, as well as structural factors such as the transition to clean energy, the reconfiguring of global supply chains, deglobalization, and the growth of geopolitical rivalries and tensions. The fiscal component of inflation alone could prove especially difficult to contain in the years ahead. Former Treasury official Howard Adler recently said that while the Fed has been battling to reduce inflation by raising interest rates, the current presidential administration has been working at cross purposes to boost inflation by increasing government spending. And against this backdrop, we just learned from the Congressional Budget Office that the deficit will average $2 trillion per year for the next 10 years. During that time frame, the national debt could surge 60% higher to more than $50 trillion. That sounds like a fiscal formula for inflation. That's why we're still talking about inflation. How will inflation ever go away if we are spending money at this rate? And what does this mean to retirement savers? How, as retirees, will we be able to maintain our standard of living in retirement if we keep spending and increasing inflation? In discussing the current environment, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers recently said, "It's as difficult an economy to read as I can remember." So guess what? I have some bad news for you. I'll be back talking about inflation over and over again. As I do, ask yourself, what are you doing to combat the effects of inflation on your retirement savings? Maybe this is the right time to look into a gold and silver IRA. That's why I suggest you take the time to learn more about what's really going on in the economy by attending our exclusive one-on-one web conference at AugustaPreciousMetals.com/webconference.